All right, good morning, guys. Go ahead.
Give us an injury update.
Did we give one yesterday?
No, it's the same as Friday.
Yeah, I mean, we did walkthrough yesterday. I didn't talk to anyone today, so it would be the same as Friday.
Have one Wednesday. Have you guys been to the University of Miami yet? Will you get a chance to go to Hard Rock?
Yeah, we went to Miami yesterday. We had a little bit of a walk. We had like a 45-minute walkthrough, came back, and we'll go to the Hard Rock on Saturday.
Obviously, there are benefits to growing up in a football family, getting to see the league from the inside like that. Are there difficulties, too, to being a famed head coach's son, just in terms of finding your own way in the league?
I mean, I would never try to say it's difficult in terms of it gave me a real good life and gave me a lot of advantages. I think I didn't know John Gruden personally, so it helped, I think, that my dad knew him a little bit to give me an opportunity as a QC to start. But I think with anyone, when people know your last name, there's always human nature. I mean, whether I made the basketball team in high school is always because of my dad, according to the guys who didn't make it, or whatever you do in sports. So, I mean, you get used to that and stuff, and I think it puts a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. But as you get older, hopefully you wear that off and become your own person.
Hold on, guys. We're going to pass mics. They'd like us to. Over here on the left, white shirt.
Kyle, what has Raheem Mostert meant to this team, and how impressed are you with his story?
I mean, I didn't know all Raheem's story, so I'm extremely impressed by him. It doesn't surprise me. Raheem, since I've gotten here, I mean, we noticed him right away just in terms of before we got on the field and everything, just how good of a guy he was. Got to meet his wife and him at almost every event. Very humble, great people. To watch Raheem battle to make the team each year as a special teams player, how good he was at special teams, and the way he's taken advantage of his opportunities as a running back. I can't say enough good things about Raheem as a person, and as a player, he's been unbelievable.
Over here, Chris Peterman, front row.
Kyle, what do you remember about that workout with Jimmy that you had at Northwestern before the draft?
I remember they didn't have a lot of receivers show up, so I had to do some of the routes, which was frustrating because he threw it too hard. I didn't have gloves, and I remember the next few days my hands were purple, but I feel like I caught most of them. And then, so the workout was great, and then going out to dinner with him later that night, just being able to hang out with him. Very simple, very humble. You know, when you spend a night with someone like that, especially through the draft process, and they come off the way he does, it's, man, well, what's the guy hiding? He seems so relaxed and such a good dude, and now I've been with him for about 3 years, and I'm no different than that first night.
Front row, Nick Wagner.
Kyle, looking back, how surprised were you that Dee Ford became available, and what are your recollections of how that came together?
I mean, you're always surprised when good players become available. You know, when you guys do get to that contract year or the year before, that it is always an option. I think he was a franchise year. I can't exactly remember. And I think it happened right before the draft or on the day of the draft. We knew we wanted to add another guy. We looked at a number of things in free agency and things like that. It was free agency when it happened. And then we weighed the options against Dee Ford being available. So to be able to get him and compare him to some of the other free agents, when we saw that, we didn't hesitate. And then it was nice to add another one in the draft.
All right, middle aisle to the left, Josina.
Hey, Kyle, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. One, do you consider yourself an offensive guru? And two, how did what you went through in the Super Bowl against the Patriots impact how you scout yourself, how you scout defenses, and just how you put together your playbook from that point even up through now? I mean, your plays.
No, I don't consider myself an offensive guru. I consider myself a coach who tries as hard as he can, and I definitely don't do it all alone. I mean, our coaches, you know, from Mike McDaniel, Michael Fleur, they put in the majority of the game plan with myself. We get a lot of help from all the coaches. And when you have good players around you and you have good coaches, it helps a lot. Everyone asks about like what I learned from that Super Bowl and everything, and I wish I could say there was some like easy answer that would have fixed us not blowing that lead, but you know, I go back and I'm hard on myself on everything, and I know the plays I wish I called differently, especially a 2nd and 11 pass once we got down there that led to a sack. So I wish I called a run there, but that was about it. You realize how when you're playing against good teams, good quarterbacks, that you can never relax, and no matter what situation I've been in since then, you can ask our players, you can ask our coaches. I freaked out at Saleh when he tried to take the starters out in Green Bay. or was it Minnesota? Yeah, it was Minnesota. And we were up like 3 scores with 2 minutes to go, and I freaked out, and then I did the math, and I thought it was all right. But you get some of that scars from that and stuff, so guys mess with me with that. But besides that, that's about it.
All right, right side, Eric Branch, third row.
Hey, Kyle, I know you've talked about there's nothing new in football as far as X's and O's, but it said great coaches kind of help push the game forward. Are there ways like Andy Reid has helped push offensive football forward?
Anybody who's tries new stuff and everything, those are the guys you like to watch, because whether you agree with it or not, it's really fun to get the tape and watch what people try, formations, different screens, different play actions, different things that you see in college. You're not always sure it's going to work in the NFL based off the speed and everything, and you get to see someone do it, and whether you do that exact thing, it usually intrigues you on a lot more ideas. You start to see how defenses play and what defenses do to have to defend those plays, and maybe you don't like that play, but you like what it puts the defense in. So you run that play just to put the defense in so it can open up other stuff. So the more tape you can watch, the more people you have out there, the more ideas people get. And especially now compared to 15 years ago, just the way the computers are and everything. I mean, we can see everything that everyone did in the league by Sunday night, where it used to take a lot of time and to put all that together. And now it's nothing. It's just a click here and there, and gives everyone a lot of advantages.
All right, second row, Tracy Sandler in the middle.
What has surprised you most about the team this season?
I think just how resilient the guys have been. We came into the season, we were a 4-12 team the year before. Our guys were very confident going into the year, but you never know until you get into that. And we won a hard our first game in Tampa was a real tough win. Had a big one the next one. And just to go throughout the year, even when we started out winning a lot more than people thought, went through some injuries. You worry about that, and just to watch how the guys stepped up. No one ever seemed overwhelmed with anything. No one ever seemed, even when a new guy came in there, other guys stepped it up to where the pressure wasn't on that guy. And I was just really impressed with the people in our room that I knew we had some good people. I knew we had some tough players, but just week in and week out, those guys never got caught up in anything. I mean, everyone was like, towards the halfway through the year when you're 8-0 and everyone's acting like, are you guys starting to listen to the media and stuff? I mean, our guys couldn't have been more of the opposite. I mean, every game we went into, whether I was preaching it or not, those guys always felt like the underdog, and we're always ready to go out there and compete.
All right, front row left, Matt Mayoko.
Kyle, in 2017, you had a couple of free agents that you signed, but you went into that draft really not having a franchise guy, a quarterback of the future. How much did you really look into Pat Mahomes, and what was your biggest question about his skills and how they translate to the NFL?
I didn't look into him obviously as much as I should have. I think we definitely looked into him, studied all his tape, was just a freak, could make any throw, had the ability to do anything. I thought it was a little bit different situation for us. We had the second pick in the draft. Did not feel like, from all the intel you get and stuff, that he was going to go that high. And it was a little different situation for us just because I think it's pretty well documented of just the relationship I had with Kirk and being in Washington and everything. And I felt very confident that he wasn't going to stay there. So anytime you go into a season knowing that a franchise quarterback's going to be available the next year, it made me a lot more picky with what we were looking at. And you saw a bunch of talented guys in that draft. But it's very tough when you watch college systems and stuff. You don't really know until you get someone in the building. I mean, you can see ability, you can see talent, but how's the mind? How do they play in the pocket? How do they process? And that's not just an IQ score. That's some stuff that I don't think you can totally test. You got to go through that with them. And so there is always a risk with that when you spend a first-round pick on a quarterback. And with the situation we were in, didn't want to be that risky. Especially with the second pick in the draft. So we didn't do that as hard. Obviously, he ended up being one of the best players in the league, along with a couple other quarterbacks that year, but he was extremely talented.
Did you spend any time with him?
We interviewed him down at the Combine. Yeah, I got to spend time down there with him.
All right, middle aisle, Stacy.
Hey, Kyle.
How you doing?
2 questions. I guess the first thing is, every year, every team is different in the NFL. What's been the specific recipe and the ingredients for you with this team? And then the second part is, your team always has appeared to be ready this year. When do you know they're ready each week as they get ready for the game on Sunday?
The way they practice, the way they work, I think if anybody watches our practices, you can't tell much of a difference in any time of the year. I think if anyone watched us during our 4-12 year, I think it could have given you a hint about that. One of the things John and I were the most impressed with our 4-12 year is that no one, you go through a long season like that and it's disappointing. It's very tough in this league for anywhere when you only win 4 games. And most places, it's very hard with all the scrutiny and everything for people not to turn against each other a little bit. Eventually, the second half of the year, people are more worried about their off season than actually going out and grinding through those practices and trying to get better, especially when you don't have much to play for. And we thought it was so impressive how hard our guys worked each week, how we felt even though we only won 4 games, we were in every game, to where at the end of the year, we were very proud of that. We actually almost started to say, is that a problem? Are our guys not mad enough? Because they were mad, but they were working so hard, and to me, they were just made of the right stuff. And we got a little bit better from going through that. Guys got a lot more reps and a lot more experience. We added a few more players, and when we went into this year, and it was really the exact same mindset. I mean, the team's attacking it the same way, but when you attack things that same way and you start out 8-0, I think it breeds a lot more confidence. Your guys just naturally get better, and I think we had it to begin with, and you get stronger through success.
Hi, Kyle. With John Lynch being a Hall of Fame finalist once again, how would you make the case for him to finally make it in this year, given having watched him play for your father and now working alongside him?
Well, I mean, John's one of the guys I can remember growing up and watching as a fan, and I thought he was just unbelievable as a fan, which you don't always totally know as a fan because you don't get to see the right tape where you can see everything going on. But just watching him as a fan, the way he would fly around and hit, I would have always said that as a fan. And then I got to Tampa Bay. It's where I started my NFL career at. And all the tape I got to watch there for 2 years. John wasn't there at all, but the tape I got to watch on him and how good that defense was and how it would not have been that good if he wasn't there. To me, it was solidified right there in Tampa. And then I know what he did when he went to Denver. A lot of people thought his career was done because he had that huge neck injury. And he went there, and I think he was there for 4 years. They went 13-3, got him to the AFC Championship game. People acted like he was a Tampa 2 safety and things like that. Anybody watch that Denver defense that year, and they were running more all-out blitzes than anyone that I've seen in my entire career by far. I mean, they were averaging about 10 to 15 a game, and that you wouldn't have thought that was John's number one asset. He went there and did it as good as anyone. I think John could have done any scheme possible. He's on the Ring of Honor in 2 different stadiums. First and foremost because of how talented and good he was, also because he's as impressive of a person as you could be around, and you can keep adding it on what he's doing as a GM and stuff, but I mean that's completely separate to me. He's earned it a long time ago.
Middle row right, Marcus.
Kyle, you went heavy run last 2 playoff games. Did you have to have a conversation with Jimmy to make sure he understood that it wasn't a loss of confidence? And if you didn't, how does he just intrinsically know that based on your relationship?
No, I would not at all have to have that. I think it's really funny that people say that, but does anyone notice how good we were running the ball? And we weren't just running it to punt and try to win 3-0. I mean, there was times, especially in that Green Bay game, we had a better chance of getting a 30-yard gain running it, just from some of the looks we were getting and things like that. And there's nothing against Jimmy. Should never apologize for us running the ball too well. There's a number of times throughout this year I think we hit a lull defensively and running the ball halfway through the year where we had to open up games throwing to start it out. And you look at the Minnesota game, our plan in that game was to run the ball game. We kind of fell into that at Green Bay. But if you look at that first drive versus Minnesota, we came out throwing, trying to loosen them up and just threaten that because we knew they would be hard to run against. And I think Jimmy was 6 of 7 maybe on the first drive and let us right down there. And we didn't have to do much. And I'd also say one thing you can always look at quarterbacks, regardless how it's going, is you can't run the ball if you don't do good on third down. And Jimmy's been as good as anyone to me on third down this year. When we've needed him to bring us back at the end of games, he's done it. I've never been a part of a game where a quarterback completes 2 3rd and 16s on a final drive to beat the Rams like he did, what he did in that first Arizona game. I think it was a 3rd and 16 also to get us back on the last drive. The second Arizona game, throwing to get back in that game. I mean, people just got to watch the whole season and they'll realize that that's not at all the case.
Hey guys, we've got time for just a couple more. We've got Mike over here, 3rd row on the aisle outside.
Kyle, you talked about how you guys had to be really picky with your quarterback decision that year. Can you just talk about how you guys went into that decision of, you could have gone free agency, could have gone draft, but then you were end up getting that trade with Jimmy and how that played out for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we looked into all the draft stuff. We looked into all trades and free agency before that. Jimmy was one of the guys we looked into earlier in the year, and he wasn't on the trade market when we looked into it. So then we realized what transpired. We're going through our first year. Started out with Brian. CJ ended up coming in, I think, in, I want to say week 5. I thought CJ was thrown in a very tough situation. We were not ready to compete very well yet, and I thought CJ was one of the best players on the field at the time, even though he didn't win a lot of games. He ended up having a huge win for us in our first game versus the Giants. And then the trade offer just randomly came out. It wasn't something that had been going back and forth a lot. The last time we had talked about it was down at the Combine, and definitely we got a no to it. And then I think they realized that they were going to make a move, and it came out on a Monday that we found out, and it happened about 30 minutes later that he was on our team, and we were excited to have someone that we knew we were potentially looking into in the offseason. But we also knew that wasn't going to guarantee anything. We knew we possibly would have a good option at a quarterback when the season was over. So we knew we were going to have Jimmy for at least 6 weeks to hopefully make a decision, which I was really worried for him, because for anyone to come into a new system, a new building, and to give him 6 weeks to show that he can be your quarterback of the future, to me is borderline impossible to do to someone, no matter how good they are. That's why I was hesitant to put Jimmy in right away, because I thought it was a little unfair to him. After, I want to say about a month, we did, and then I think he blew all our minds. The success he had when he was out there with very little preparation and a little foundation in the offense and how well he played. By the time that season ended, even though I thought it would be hard for him to do, he made our decision very easy.
All right, we've got time for 2 more. The bikes have already been passed. Orlando here, 3rd row middle.
Yeah, Coach Kyle, could you discuss the play of Ben Garland and how he stepped up for you at center, and then also Mike Person, a couple of Falcon linemen there?
Yeah, Ben's been great. I mean, that's one of the stories that has been the most impressive this year. I mean, when we lost our tackles and both guys came in who hadn't played in the NFL before, and we continue to win. When we lost Richburg, who I credit as much as anyone on our team with how well we've run the ball this year, how well we've protected. I thought Richburg was having as good of a year as any center. And then we lost him. It was going to be very tough. Had a lot of confidence in Ben. But the player that we lost in Richburg was a little bit scary, especially the time that we did it. And Ben came in, didn't hesitate, did great in his first game and has gotten better in each game since. Not only has he just came in and done his job, but he's made plays out there. I mean, if you guys look at him on some of the rounds, the reverses, some of the screens that we've had, he's been a playmaker, and we haven't missed a beat. He's been huge. And Mike Person, just got the utmost respect for Mike. I think he was on 7 different teams in his first 8 years. Mike is a guy that I was with in Atlanta who battled for us, did a lot of good things. And then we got him. He was available. We just got him in a workout last year. He was available. We worked out 3 guys. He did the best at it, especially us knowing him as a guy. And he ended up starting every game for us last year. This year, started most of the year. He played through a ton of things, a ton of injuries. Gave him a few weeks off. Brunskill came in and did a hell of a job, and got Mike healthy again, and he's been back since the playoffs started, and then he's been right back where he started.
All right, last one on the right, gentleman outside right.
Hello, Carl. Federico Olvera from Deportes for Radio 13 in Mexico City. Good afternoon. Last year was a tough one. You guys have a difficult year, but how did you manage to be here this year? Many people thought that the 49ers wasn't for real this year, but what's the secret of your success this year? What is the main keys to be here, and what do you have to do in order to win next Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it was something kind of like I was saying earlier that, I mean, I don't wish an 0-9 start on anyone, and I don't wish a 4-12 season on anyone. But if you don't sit there and have to label it bad or good, you just try to experience it and get better from it, and that's what I thought we did. I mean, we really learned from it. A lot of guys got to play in situations where they normally wouldn't have. We learned how to go through a lot of adversity together, which I think made our team only stronger. A lot of times adversity will break people, but with us, we went through something that we weren't proud of, but we were proud how we handled it, and we really were proud that we felt we were a much better team than our record showed. And it doesn't matter until you can go out and prove it. And the opportunity our guys got this year from what they had learned in those 2 seasons really, to me, is what made us stronger, made us a little more battle-tested, and really helped us go through this long season that led us to here.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.